What's up? What's happening? George Balekji with my guy Athan Hristodulu, my co-host on Foxborough Rush today. Excited for this show. Athan used to be the producer of Foxborough Rush. Now produces, holds it down on Boston, has entered the chat. This one thing for this show, you know it'll be the most on-time show ever because our great producer, Brendan, who holds it down behind the glass, and now our producer who's on air with me, Athan, will be on air with me. Athan, I'm excited to have you on this one, and I know you guys are running a tight ship and keep me in check.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, when it's time to get rolling and it's time to get out, we are getting in and out on time if I'm on the set or behind the camera.
I can't wait for you getting the cues. You're like, George, shut up, stop talking, cut me off, toss to break. We got a good show for you guys, though. Patriots getting some offseason grades. Now, we know they got A's across the board when it came to the draft, but the overall offseason, we'll be getting into that, including the ESPN article that came out on them. We'll also talk more quotes, Bill Belichick versus Robert Kraft through the media, because, of course, that's what a 73-year-old head coach and a 80-something-year-old billionaire do. They talk through the media like petty little girls. So we'll be talking about all that. But then we'll also go through some NFL storylines. Shamar Stewart, could he just say, you know what, screw you, Bengals. I'm just going to re-enter the draft next year, or more of a free agent. Also, Terry McLaurin, Juwan Jennings. Who should be coming to New England, and can the Pats make a swing? We'll get into all that, including a mailbag later on in this show. Let's start with the offseason grades, though, Athan. So Seth Walder of ESPN put out an article, and this goes through drafts, trades, free agency, all moves. I like this. This is the offseason. It's not the draft alone. It's everything you've done to grade the team. A C+ for the New England Patriots. So this is obviously an offseason that brought in Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Carlton Davis, the headliners, Stefon Diggs, Morgan Moses, drafted Will Campbell, drafted Travion Henderson, drafted Kyle Williams, brought in Josh McDaniels, all of this. Do you agree with that C+ grade? Oh, by the way, Mike Vrabel is now the head coach of the Patriots too.
Yeah, listen, I will say that I think it's a fair grade because, like you said, I think that they did a really good job with this year's draft class, hitting on a ton of team needs offensively because they were very defensively focused during the free agency period. And then you look at free agency, looking at some of the critiques that are in there, and we'll get into them as we start to work our way through some of the things that were said in the article itself. There are guys that I like. There are guys that I'm like, okay. And then there's also money that I'm not a fan of going to guys that I like. And then maybe guys that I think, okay, you got a pretty solid deal for them considering what they bring to the table, veteran leadership, past experience in the system that they're working in now, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's fair to sit at C+. If you want to argue B-, maybe it's a C. I mean, that's semantics, but I think it's fine. I think the Patriots, the way they've gone this offseason, the way they've gone about addressing the needs that they've had, it was average, slightly above at best.
Yeah, I don't like the C+ grade. The big knock he's giving him is a Milton Williams contract. Made him the highest paid player in Patriots history. They also had to get ahead of the market. I mean, you and I, we had a great combo. The second the numbers came out, you're like, holy overpay. And I go, look, man, more D tackles will get paid. It'll look gaudy this season, maybe, until someone else gets paid. But they get ahead of the market. And there's the suck tax. The Patriots have been terrible. You have to persuade guys to come here, and dollar bills is what makes sense. They had to overpay for Milton Williams. To give them a C+, I think that's too harsh. Yes, he wasn't the main guy. That was Jalen Carter on the defensive line. But you pair him up with a Christian Barmore. You give him the support. And he's going to be asked a lot. He's getting paid a lot, which I think is fine. But what you put with Milton Williams on that defensive line, with the other vets and the young and upcoming guys like a Keon White, the rookies, we can get into all that. The front seven with the coaching staff, I give this offseason a B+. Now you can go, all right, B+ to C+. I mean, that's a significant grade change. I would give them an A if they actually got an elite number one receiver. And let me take away the word elite. If they got a number one receiver, a guy that we know will be that chain mover, that man beater, the guy Drake Maye can trust on 3rd and 7 or on the money downs. Stefon Diggs was the big offensive piece addition when it came to weapons, and it just does not move the needle for me at all. I give them a B+. I'm far from giving them an A, but also carrying a lot of the weight, Athan, in this is Vrabel's a head coach, Josh McDaniels the OC, Thomas Brown as an assistant, Doug Marrone as an assistant, Terrell Williams with his defensive staff, then how they built that defense and how they built the offense with a lot of question marks. This offensive line is nothing but question marks outside of right guard, with a lot of question marks about how they built this offensive line and added some key pieces like a Travion Henderson through the draft.
Yeah, I think for me, so we'll start with the Milton Williams thing because I think that is the most important piece of this whole puzzle here on why he's giving them such a poor grade. I think it's fair to maybe have some criticism of the Milton Williams signing, but I think money is an extremely it's a tired and lazy take because, like you said, the suck tax is very real. My initial reaction, of course, being wholly overpay. At the end of the day, when you're a bad football team, you're paying for the top players available in free agency. And Milton Williams, on top of, it felt like damn near every single board that we looked at, where he was sitting as number one, and if he wasn't number two, he was like 2 or 3 at the lowest. He was the premier guy as one of the worst teams in the NFL. You're going to pay for that. My concern just really comes down to, what does he actually bring to the table as a full-time starter? Because you look at Milton Williams' career to this point, never been a full-time starter. And even if you look back to as recently as this year, what was he? A guy who started quite a bit during the early portion of the season, but fell back more into that rotational role. He averaged roughly about 50% of the total snaps he could have played this past season on an Eagles defensive front that from left to right was absolutely loaded. I mean, you already mentioned like a Jalen Carter, a Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith Jr., Brandon Graham before he got hurt, Josh Sweat, who departed for the Arizona Cardinals this offseason rather. I mean, the names go on and on and on. And yes, he was productive in the opportunities he was given. Absolutely, without question. The real question is now, though, on a defense that, in my eyes, and I'm sure a handful would agree, probably not quite as talented as a Philadelphia Eagles defense is over there. I'm just unsure of what you're going to actually get from him production-wise. I'm excited to see him paired alongside Christian Barmore, and I like, obviously, some of the other pieces working on that defensive front as well. You look at a Keon White, who a lot of people have high hopes for, a Harold Landry signing that we'll talk about later that I'm extremely high on, that I think I'm higher on than most people are, interestingly enough. I think it's just, for me, it's just about the production is nice, but it's not full-time starter proven production, so that is where my concern starts to pop up.
And I get it. You won't find a defensive tackle that is a highly effective and really playing more than, I want to say, around 65% of snaps. Now, him being under that 50% threshold on a defensive line that had Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, and himself, Milton Williams, that's a lot of depth. The Patriots have depth. Now, is it proven depth? No, because they'll be relying on 2 rookies. But you put them up on this front with this type of system where the 4 guys wreak havoc, everyone drops in coverage, Robert Spillane will be the mic calling the plays, he has a green dot. You put a lot on his shoulders. There's a lot to be expected of Milton Williams. Man, I love the tape. He's not the best run defender, but it's about affecting the quarterback, as Mike Vrabel said. And you surround him with the right type of guys that can complement him. You pay that contract, you're projecting he will be better. You're projecting he will be the guy. Because it could be him or Christian Barmore, and a defensive tackle, that position, you may not get the sacks, the pressures, the numbers. If you're eating up the double teams and opening it up for the guys surrounding you, then it pans out. And if that works for Milton Williams, then it's a win for the Patriots. We'll just see if it even gets to that point. That's a big thing. I understand the criticism of it, and it's fair to be critical. I just watch that tape. I watch what he was doing in the Super Bowl. I watch what he was doing all season long for the Eagles too. Stacked defensive line, yes, but he was still producing and beating blockers one-on-one. Can he produce and eat up double teams? And say he doesn't become that guy and Barmore stays the guy eating up double teams. Okay, he can pull through. And the way to be critical of it because of the contract, cool. When teams win the Super Bowl, like when the Rams won the Super Bowl, did we go, wasn't as impressive because they don't have any first-round picks coming up. Wasn't as impressive because they get Stafford all that money. No, they won the Super Bowl. They go all in. They had to hit reset. They bottomed out. But look at where they're at now. They can, again, be contenders with that defensive line and with that offense with Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. That's a tactic the Patriots are going with. I get the critical offseason grade. I do think it's fair to a point. To me, I would harp on more of the wide receiving room and the offensive line than pointing out Milton Williams in all this.
Absolutely. And that is where like my gripes start to pop up with this offseason here, because for me, I think I look at something along the lines of like the Joe Thuney trade that happened during the offseason, a 4th round selection from Chicago, something that is probably in the ballpark of where the Patriots will end up being next year themselves. I think they're somewhere within that same realm of where they're going to finish number of wins wise, give or take a game or two. And a guy that's coming off of back-to-back all pros. He has been a New England Patriot, beloved by New England Patriots fans and the people within the building itself. And you look at the extension they had to give him, $17.5 million per year. And on top of that, that doesn't even kick in till the following season anyways. He's making like $8 million this year alone. And it's not like the Patriots are short of any money. They are so well below the salary cap threshold. There's plenty of dollars to be burned. And when you're going into the coming out of the offseason now, going into training camp, and you're looking at what are like the biggest, most like pressing concerns at this point for the offense, wide receiver room obviously still being one of the big ones, but a lot of conversation is going on right now about the guard spot that is currently wide open for competition. And if you have Joe Thuney on this offensive line, you give up a 4th round selection and maybe like a 7th or a 6th round pick in another draft to sweeten the deal so you beat out the Bears there. You're looking at a very, very competent offensive line, and the conversation around Will Campbell gets alleviated as well, because what's everyone saying? Well, he's going to be playing alongside Joe Thuney. I feel pretty good about his chances playing alongside Joe Thuney as opposed to John Smith or whoever it is that's going to be rotating through that left
Cole
guard
Strange,
spot.
Layden Robinson. Yeah, it could be the rookie Jared Wilson. You put him next to a vet who, by the way, Joe Thuney played left tackle, break glass in case of emergency type of role for the Chiefs. He's a guy that played left tackle in college and slid inside. And you can say Will Campbell's a left tackle all you want. The tape will tell us if he's a left tackle. Sundays will tell us if he's a left tackle. Joe Thuney can help him with playing on the outside, give him tips. Or, now this would be a short wingspan, short-armed left side of the offensive line. But in case of emergency, like the big thing is they need to rely on Will Campbell to work at left tackle. That's a construction of this roster. Or else it's Caden Wallace or Vidarian Lowe again on the blind side for Drake Maye. And that did not work. We saw they need him to work. And that's putting a lot of pressure on Cole Strange, who can't stay healthy. Layden Robinson, who's just entering his 2nd season and still leaves a lot to be desired in pass pro. Or if it's Jared Wilson, who would be a rookie, who really is a center. And this offensive line, you go left to right. It's Will Campbell, the rookie, undersized wingspan. At left guard, it's a question mark. At center, it's Garrett Bradbury, who's okay and who's a vet. But Jared Wilson very likely can beat him out. Then it's Mike Onwenu at right guard. And then it's Morgan Moses, 34 years old, coming off surgery on his sprained MCL, who has played a long time in this league, but is getting up there in age, and that's significant surgery. There's so many question marks up front. And then the wide receiving room, who's the man beater? You're going to rely on the rookie and Kyle Williams. We'll see what Kendrick Bourne is. If he's still even on the team after they break camp, he could be a trade piece. He could be cut. I don't think he's cut because there's real money still there. They have so many question marks up front and in the wide receiving room. I can't ignore it. And they could keep pointing to a Travion Henderson, what he does. And I can't ignore what their hopes are when it comes to the offense. The defense, they got answers. With the offense, it's all hopes. And that's what I don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is where the shortcomings go. And that's why I sit here and I feel like it's easy to kind of take both sides of the offseason as a whole and how they tried to retool the offense and how they retooled the defense, where it feels like they were so strong with the acquisitions and what they did to make this defense get back to the level of play that everyone was kind of expecting from it last season because it was so good the year prior to that. Whereas the offense, there's a lot of what ifs, ands, or buts that you're dealing with right now, where you're relying on a lot of rookies or maybe a 2nd round pick and a Jalen Polk who barely sniffed 100 yards last season as your 2nd round selection. So it's easy to go, all right, C+. So this is where I start to feel okay with the grade that they ended up receiving from this article, because at the end of the day, again, I really like the defensive side of the ball. I'm very high on Harold Landry. I think that's one of those additions that is not getting quite the love that I feel it personally deserves. You look at his average in terms of sacks the last 3 seasons he's played, basically 10 every single year. He's able to create all that pressure on top of it as well. And then you look at the interior, getting Christian Barmore back. I like Milton Williams, and I hope it didn't come off like I don't like Milton Williams. I have my concerns about how effective he'll be in year 1 as a full-fledged starter. But again, great addition there. The secondary, Carlton Davis, as long as he's able to stay on the field, should be great. So like you look at the defense, you go A+. The offense, though, aging right tackle. What are we doing at left guard? Stefon Diggs coming off a knee surgery, who at this point through the offseason has kind of made us sweat a few more bullets than I think we've wanted to at this current point. I mean, are we going to run into anything else between now and the actual kickoff of the regular season? So that's just why I kind of end off with, if you want to say C+, I kind of think it's fair, depending on how strongly you feel about the strengths of the defensive additions and then the weaknesses of the offense still.
I think what's great is that how you point out the Joe Thuney trade. For me, it'd be in a bigger push for DK Metcalf. Now, them not trading for him tells me what they think about him and the money that would have been on the books, because there is that gaudy number of what the value was for Stefon Diggs. Then you find out the guaranteed money's $25 million, where the AAV of DK Metcalf matches or exceeds that, and they would be on the books for that and more guaranteed money. This is also a team that they had to spend a lot in this free agency because the roster stinks. But they have to look down the line, and they know after this season, Christian Gonzalez is going to want an extension. It's now 3 years. It's not 4 years before players get extensions. And teams, it's smart for them to do that, get ahead of the market. And after next season, Drake Maye will want that extension. Or maybe he holds out, waits another year, and the market goes up. But that's what they see on the books in the short term and the near term. And they know they need to keep adding through the draft. So they wanted to spend wisely, and they spent on the defensive side. Mike Vrabel's a defense-first coach. Makes sense. It's just a lot of hopes on the offensive line. A lot of hopes in the receiving room. Now, Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper are back. That's fine. They're good. They're good pieces. Not great, not elite. They're good. The wide receiving room still is just bottom 7 in the league, I would give it. Now, if Kyle Williams explodes, has a good rookie season, great. That'll boost them. But you're asking a lot on a rookie and Josh McDaniels system. That is a lot to ask.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it is. It's hopes and dreams. And, you're relying on a rookie, like you said, in Kyle Williams. And then, of course, you're relying on a guy coming off of a major knee injury that he's hoping he can get back to looking the way he did prior to the injury. And then I look at the depth chart for the wide receiver room just right now. Obviously, nothing set in stone at this point, but just looking at the guys as it is, like you have Demario Davis, Matt Collins, Stefon Diggs as guys that are probably going to see a ton of time, Kyle Williams as well. And then you look at the rest, it's like Keyshawn Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, Efton Chisholm, the star of minicamp from earlier this summer. And you ask yourself, what does this wide receiver room even end up looking like? And is there a real possibility that guys like a Jalen Polk might not even factor in and could be cut? Javon Baker might as well be as good as gone, because the reality is, are the Patriots going to come into the season with 7 or 8 wide receivers? No. Could they maybe stash them away on their practice squad because nobody's interested in Jalen Polk or Javon Baker? Yeah, probably. But how is that going to sit well, especially with Jalen Polk? The hopes and dreams have me worried. I like the direction they are heading in. I don't have super high expectations for the offense, and I think this team is going to mirror a very defensive heavy, as long as Drake Maye takes care of the football style of offense, it's going to be one of those gritty teams that has to grind it out, very akin to like the early days of that Patriots initial dynasty. I don't think we're sniffing that yet, but you get the point of heavy reliance on defense.
What the offense will look like.
Needs to take care of the ball.
If Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson can produce, that opens up the play action that allows Josh McDaniels to get players open. And Drake Maye is smart enough to execute in that system. If you get a Drake Maye in his sophomore year that has 25, 30 passing touchdowns, add in a few scores, let's say 2 to 5 on the ground for him rushing, and then complementary pieces, that's a good offense. That's what you'll take. You need to put points on the board and move the chain. When it comes to the red zone, how do they execute? When it comes to the money downs, how do they execute? And when the explosive plays, who's getting open? It's Kyle Williams downfield. It's Matt Collins in the red area. And then after that, it's again a lot of question marks. And you bring up the wide receiving room. Efton Chisholm, like that, the fact that the guy continues to be in the conversation, that's someone to watch throughout training camp. If he makes an impact, that's a guy that he'll boot out a Keyshawn Boutte or Javon Baker. If he shows flashes, those guys in year 2 very well could be practice squad players too. Efton Chisholm could be a practice squad player. It's not a failure for him. He's an undrafted free agent. We'll take a break here on Foxborough Rush. When we get back, we'll talk some Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick and those two old men continuing to battle through the media. That's coming up on Foxborough Rush. We'll take a quick break right now.
So what was your best decision that you've made as an owner to date?
Getting Bill Belichick to come to the Patriots. I gave up a number 1 draft pick, coach who had only won a little over 40% of his game in 1999. It was a big risk, and I got hammered in the Boston media, but I think we did okay.
So that was Robert Kraft at the Fanatics Fest, asked what his greatest decision was, and he said, hire Bill Belichick. Started great, and then foot entered mouth. As he goes, I took a big risk because Robert Kraft wants to take credit for the hiring of Bill Belichick. Belichick, the risk, in his 5 seasons with Cleveland, had a 36-44 record as a head coach of the Browns. Went 6-10, 7-9, 7-9, 11-5, won a playoff game. Then went 5-11, was not a head coach for the following 4 seasons, was a defensive coordinator under Bill Parcells, did really well with the New York Jets. Obviously was tapped to be the New York Jets head coach, bolted, wrote on a napkin, I resign as Jets HCBB, and became the Patriots head coach. The best part of this one, though, Athan, in an article written by Don Van Natta Jr., Belichick fired back saying, well, as I told Robert multiple times through the years, I took a big risk by taking the New England Patriots head coaching job. I already had an opportunity to be the head coach of the New York Jets, but the ownership situation was unstable. He's talking about the Jets there, because I believe it was like the Hess family that owned them at the time. And then Belichick went on, yeah, right. And he goes, I had been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches, as well as other members of other NFL organizations, that the New England job was going to come with many internal obstacles. Internal, not many obstacles, internal ownership. I made it clear that we would have to change the way the team was managed to regain the previously attained success. Change the way the team was managed meant he became the de facto decision maker on everything football. It worked out. They won 6 championships. But what's the risk for Bill Belichick? He had a head coaching job, and he left that to become a head coach for a guy who we knew would be the owner. And what was the risk for Robert Kraft? Because the Patriots absolutely sucked, aside from their 2 Super Bowl appearances. Were absolutely terrible, and they had cheap ownership like they do now. It was a risk for both parts, but this is more on Robert Kraft, again, trying to change what the story is and trying to change the narrative on if it was luck that he hired him, but it was him taking a risk, and he knew the calculated risk. And then it's also 2 old guys that are really rich and really wealthy and should not care what anyone thinks, let alone the other, going at each other in the media.
Yeah, this is definitely that. Like you basically took the words right out of my mouth. It's 2 old rich guys who used to be in business together, who clearly split off and went their separate ways, and are just throwing dirt on each other's name in the most low key but not low key manners possible, because it's so obvious what they're doing as they try to tiptoe around what they're doing. It's funny because I'm curious if anyone around them is like, oh, you man, great job, giving Bill a quick little jab on that one there, where it's It's very obvious that they're taking shots at each other. It's no real secret at this point here. And the reality is, when you talk about risk manage or just the risks for both sides and what was the risk in one way, what was the risk in the other way, well, here's where I start to kind of look at this. And I should preface this all by saying that I grew up in New England as a non-Patriots fan. That is a story for another time, but I did not grow up rooting for the Patriots. That being said, I got to grow up in the dynasty, watching it from the outside and being able to look in on everything that has transpired over the 20 some odd years that this franchise went through the Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era. The risk is that Robert Kraft, at least on Belichick's end, he's not a good owner. And he never was. And I have been standing on this hill and talking about it for quite some time now. And I'm excited to be able to present this argument to everyone today. The reality is, when you look at where the Patriots were when Bill Belichick got there, you had a team that was $10 million over the cap at 8-8, just fired Pete Carroll. They were not going anywhere. And that 8-8 record looks a lot better in hindsight, when the reality is that they won 2 of their last 8 games in that stretch to finish off the season, hence why Pete Carroll was being fired as everything started to fall apart. This was not a good team. And on top of that, I look at what has transpired between the end of Brady's time and then following Belichick's time in New England as the most obvious marker of what kind of owner Robert Kraft and his son are for this team. And that's that they don't actually know what they're doing. And they're trying to just rewrite the story that is this Patriots dynasty and give themselves all the credit, as we've seen kind of happening over the last handful of years now, going back to the Dynasty documentary or just the books that we've been getting from all of this. The reality is, Robert Kraft, the owner, lucked into getting the greatest defensive mastermind in football. And on top of that, lucked into drafting the greatest quarterback and greatest football player of all time in Tom Brady, the ultimate winner, the ultimate leader, a guy that could literally get anyone to buy in. If you needed to have your dog playing on the football field and making scores, he could probably get it done. That's how great of a motivator and a leader Tom Brady was. You could throw anyone out there and they'd be successful. As we saw everything start to end, we get ourselves the departure of Tom Brady, the money conversation, what went on there. Robert Kraft likes to sit there and talk about how, I kept it all together. I kept the split from happening further down the road than it should have actually happened. And he's talked about that at length. But the reality of that is, if you don't have the greatest quarterback of all time, and one of the greatest, if not the greatest head coaches of all time and the greatest defensive mastermind of all time in the NFL, that does not continue to work. You don't continue to win Super Bowls. You can't take credit for that, Robert Kraft. That continued to work because Brady and Belichick allowed it. So for me, the way I see it, that's the risk from Belichick's end. The risk is pretty obvious from Kraft's end. It's basically just like you said initially as we started this segment here. Belichick, no winning record. Yeah, he was great as a defensive coordinator for the Giants, won a couple of Super Bowls there. But the reality was he wasn't a good head coach, at least record-wise to this point. And even just like in terms of the whole signing to be the head coach of the Jets and then just ultimately uprooting himself and no, I'm just kidding, I'm going to New England, holding a press conference in New York to tell everyone about that. Like, that's all questionable in and of itself on top of that. So like there's the risk there. But for me, Belichick took all the risk because I don't buy into Robert Kraft being a good owner at this point. I think from everything we've seen from the early stages of that dynasty era to what we saw following Brady's departure and Belichick's departure, the backdoor deal with Drake Maye, the subsequent hiring and firing of Drake Maye, it's been a bit of a disaster.
As I put it, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, not just GOATs, are erasers. They can erase poor ownership. They can erase poor decision-making. And Bill Belichick, especially at the beginning of his tenure, he was everything. He was the GM. He was a personnel decider, had the final say on any roster move made, paying players, all of that, and was a head coach and a defensive mastermind, assembled his staffs, had a great brain trust. And then we saw once Tom Brady left, and then Bill Belichick. It's fair to say his defenses were still elite. As awful and putrid and anemic and inept as the offenses were for 2022 to 2024, his last 3 seasons, the defense still showed up, as injured as they were, as lacking of talent as they were. But Belichick at that point couldn't draft anymore, couldn't spend wisely, couldn't assemble an offense, and couldn't build a staff. But the defense still showed up. Tom Brady erased the deficiencies of Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick and Tom Brady together, neither would be successful without the other. It's a great convo. There's a question of like the truth elixir. If you give Bill Belichick the truth elixir, what question would you ask him? It would be, hey, seriously, how much would you have won without Tom Brady? And you'd want the full, honest truth from Bill Belichick, and that'd be an amazing thing to hear. How much would you have won without Robert Kraft? You'd probably laugh and go, it was me and Tom. And I think that's fair. What Don Van Natta notes in this, and this is the subliminal writing. You always got to catch, the stuff between the lines, right, Athan? He put that this is now year 14 of Robert Kraft campaigning to get into the Football Hall of Fame. And that's why he goes, the big risk I took to try and take credit for hiring Bill Belichick. The same way Bill Belichick can say, I took a risk by playing Tom Brady over Drew Bledsoe, which, that was a risk. Drew Bledsoe was a proven commodity. Tom Brady was just a young quarterback at that point. But he could also say, I took the risk at picking him and letting him wait, and then I knew the value to get him at 199. If he knew Tom Brady was going to be Tom Brady, he would not have waited around until the 199th pick. He wouldn't have waited around until the 6th round to take Tom Brady. Tom Brady, becoming what he was his hard work, was part luck, because that's part of it. You got to fall into the perfect system and situation. And then his work ethic elevated him to the greatest football player of all time. Bill Belichick, it took a while for him to latch on and click as a head coach, but that worked out. And this is Robert Kraft again trying to change some things. Again, it's revisionist history is what he's trying to do for the people that can't think that far back. And the people at Fanatics Fest or see a TikTok, they go, oh, wow, yeah, there was a risk. And they go with that. What I want to bring up too, when he brought up, I had been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches. Well, Bill Parcells does not like Jonathan Kraft, despised him. And I think he famously said the only person worse than Robert Kraft is Jonathan. And that was part of Jonathan trying to be too meddling as an owner with the New England Patriots. And then we also know the Pete Carroll bologna sandwich story, where he came over from the 49ers, everything was top class, all of that. And he goes, you know how you feed the players, culture, etc. And Robert Kraft's like, well, we give them sandwiches and chips and that. We don't really spend that much money on food. And Pete Carroll's like, wait, what? And then he lasted 3 seasons and was fired. His mental approach, his aspect, his psychological approach to the game and building a team did not mesh with the Patriots. For Pete Carroll, it was probably invest in the players. California, cool, all about the players. Robert Kraft's like, no, budget, bottom line, all that. That was definitely the warnings he got. But again, and for Bill Belichick, take the risk. Yeah, you left the Hess family and the Jets with the ownership up in question, and he went to New England Patriots, which, that was a bad team that just fired a head coach. That's a soft landing because the expectations of New England were nothing. Old Foxborough Stadium was one of the worst in the league. They haven't won ever. They wouldn't been to Super Bowls, but that's it. There was no risk in him taking the job because he could have gotten fired again. Maybe he never becomes a head coach again, but he would have been a lifelong and he eventually probably would have became a head coach. Again, it's just these two old guys, Eighth. It's these two old guys. Like, stop, guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is one of the cases of like slow news day. Like, we could sit here and debate up and down over who took the bigger risk, Bill Belichick or Robert Kraft, and go through the nuances. And I can lay out my spiel that I did 100 times over and try to make more points about it. But at the end of the day, you can tell that it is mid-July. Training camp is just about to start, but not really going just yet. And we're all looking for things to talk about right now. And here we are discussing an article about two guys that have no association with each other at this current stage in what they do and are continuing to talk about each other because one is campaigning to try to get himself into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the 14th season now. And you have Bill Belichick, who's running around with Jordan Hudson and is trying to, I guess, create a story that doesn't have to do with her, maybe. I don't know. Is it a coincidence that a new post went out on Instagram, what was it, yesterday, of them two by the water, and now all of a sudden this is coming out? Like, I don't know. It's just, it's that time of year where we're getting those types of things. And unfortunately, I think for somebody who grew up in New England outside of the Patriot fandom, and seeing this all happen the way it has, and just like the devolving of the relationship between Brady, Belichick, and Kraft, and whatever shape it is in now at this current stage, it's sad. Because I grew up not rooting for the Patriots. I hated the Patriots growing up. I was a Colts fan, for those of you who don't know. But as I got older, I grew to respect and admire what the Patriots built and what they were. And I remember when the rumblings first started to come out, and you're hearing, oh, there's some dissent amongst Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and things aren't as pretty as it all may seem. It's unfortunate because everything that they put together for the 25 years, we'll just round the number to, that they put together, and for the championships won, it all has to sit now in this ugly pool of just yuck and mess because these two just need to take a shot at each other at any given opportunity. And it's just sad. It's sad because, again, I have so much respect for what the Patriots have done for basically my entire life. And to see that we can't celebrate it properly because these two guys are at each other's throats about various nonsense is just ridiculous.
It'll be interesting when Tom Brady's honored with his statue, if Bill Belichick's in attendance. I haven't looked into... No, UNC is not playing football yet. That's with all of this, too. Like, one guy is the owner of an NFL team. The other guy is a college head coach. And they're going through this war of the words with the media. Dan Shaughnessy, when he wrote for the Boston Globe his review of The Art of Winning, the book written by Bill Belichick, which really didn't have anything in it, but he was just doing it because Jordan Hudson probably pressured him into doing it. Talking fast on purpose there. Is that there are 363 people acknowledged in that section. Robert Kraft isn't mentioned in the book once. Bill Belichick, for as much as he likes to put on the front of snap face and ghost book or whatever he wants to do, all that, doesn't pay attention to the media, doesn't care, is so hardwired and has such a shield up that it's all, he doesn't care. It's all about football. He's petty. He's insecure. He knows what everyone in the media is saying. Maybe he catches wind of this podcast. He knows everything that was written. He had a guy hired to literally do that, tell him everything that is said. That's what he does. And he's petty, and he cares about Robert Kraft taking shots at him, which is fine. If you're Bill Belichick, just go scorched earth on this one and be like, all right, Robert, what was the risk? Yeah, I did this, but also your team was blank, blank, blank. And guess what? And just be there's sometimes be the bigger person. Be an adult. Again, I'm saying this to a 73-year-old head football coach. Be a leader. I'd be like, yeah, sure, he took a risk on me, but I'd say it benefited us both. So who cares if it was a big risk? I'm happy he hired me. Kill him with kindness. I'm giving advice to an 83-year-old billionaire and a 73-year-old millionaire. Who am I? I'm Joe effing Schmo. I'm 31 years old, dude. It's just, yes, it's a slow time. This is worth talking about. To your point, Athan, of the pedestal the Patriots are put on, what we look at the mountaintop of team building and dynasties and franchises, and now what we see, Robert Kraft, just be an owner. You'll get into the Hall of Fame eventually, dude. Just stop trying to make these pushes. And Bill, go coach football in Chapel Hill or go sit on a hill with your girlfriend that's 50 years younger than you. Ooh.
Yeah. No, listen, it is that time of year. There's nothing going on. And we have two old guys that are just trying to ego check each other at every possible turn.
I don't watch Love Island, but I would love to see a reality show of Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. Same vacation house in Nantucket for 2 weeks.
The Golden Island, like they have the Golden Bachelor?
Yeah, yes. Just the two of them, too. No one else in the house. They're forced to talk to one another. Maybe throw in one other person. I guess Julian Edelman. I don't know. We'll take a break. When we get back, we'll be talking actual football. Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, their contracts, what that means for the Patriots. Plus, Shamar Stewart. Could he return to college football? Could he play in another league? We'll talk that and more coming up on Foxborough Rush. What's up? Welcome back to Foxborough Rush. George Balekji Athan Hristodulu with you guys. All right, let's get into some significant news across the league. Starting with the Jets. Looking like a serious franchise. We always say this, and then they always end up effing it up. But same week, Garrett Wilson, 4-year, $130 million contract, $90 million guaranteed. And then Sauce Gardner, 4-year, $120 million contract, $85 million guaranteed for Sauce Gardner, making him with some of the highest guaranteed money we've seen for any defensive back in NFL history. Garrett Wilson with the $90 million. This is also significant because those guys were drafted in 2022. And the Jets themselves, they're not waiting till after this season to do the rookie extensions and get ahead of picking up that fifth-year option. They're doing it now. They get ahead of the market, but they're giving these guys their due. And you know what? Both of them live up to the billing. Sauce is one of the best cornerbacks in the game. Garrett Wilson's one of the best wide receivers in the game. They're both rookie of the years on the opposite sides of the ball. Kudos to the Jets. Never thought I'd say that. But kudos to the Jets for doing smart business. That's also the effect of you bring in Aaron Glenn from the Detroit Lions. Your new GM is from the Denver Broncos. You're hiring from outside some serious football minds.
Oh, absolutely. And, like you said, it's very weird to sit here and go, wow, the Jets did something right. And not only did they do it right once, they did it twice. Getting it done early, getting it out of the way, not finding themselves in similar situations to a team up in Cincinnati who seems to like to wait until the absolute last minute to spend as much money as possible on their extensions. But this is great for the Jets. And seeing this gives me a question I want to ask you, George, because I know you are a Patriots fan. I'm not. So this is like, for me personally, I look at it and I go, great signings for a team that typically is not doing the right thing at any given moment in time. But as a Patriots fan, you see a Sauce Gardner getting the money that he's getting. You have Christian Gonzalez on your roster. You know he's going to be due for that contract soon at some point as well with the way that he's playing. And then there's no wide receiver in the realm of existence, I think, at this current point that's going to be seeing that kind of money from the Patriots anytime soon. No. Does this give you a little bit of envy? Wishing that, this could be the Patriots and having these kinds of problems, having to pay these kinds of players?
Of course you would want that if you're any football fan, like to have a stud wide receiver one. Garrett Wilson's absolutely fantastic. And then you have a stud cornerback one. For the Patriots, at least they know they have Christian Gonzalez, and the story will be different for them. Gonzalez is part of that 2022 draft class. Okay, so after this season, he's going to get paid. And it could be a deal like this. 4 years, $125 million. I'm just throwing numbers out there. $88 million guaranteed. Just round it up and give him $90 million guaranteed. The guy's up to the billing. Then after next season, that's when the Drake Maye contract comes into play. And that's when things get interesting because I know that's what they're gearing up for. And it won't be a contract even close to either one of these. It'll be like a Josh Allen-esque contract. 6-7 years, $350 million total value, right? But then the guaranteed, it could be between $230 and $250 million, maybe more. Get ahead of the market. Some other quarterbacks are going to get paid. It could push it to 6 years, $260 million guaranteed. That's what the Patriots, I think, are preparing for with how they're putting together their roster, how they're not spending all this cap space now. We'll talk about Terry McLaurin and them. There's no... Patriots fans, they should never be envious. And I'm like, yeah, I grew up a Patriots fan, but like doing this job, you see how sausage is made. And also just like covering the league as a whole. I just love football, so it's like the Patriots fandom dies down. But I'm always going to be a realist and a truther. Patriots fans should never be jealous of the New York Jets. I'm going, no, duh. Yeah, maybe their roster everywhere, but the quarterback position's in a better spot. But the head coach is better for the Patriots. The quarterback is better for the Patriots. The offensive coordinator is better for New England too. Eventually, their guys will be getting paid. Would they love Garrett Wilson? Yeah. The only time they pick that high, though, they've taken a quarterback and a left tackle. We'll see what happens this year. We'll see what happens when Jeremiah Smith is draft eligible too. That'd be a whole nother conversation. But this is something when I see that, especially the $85 million for Sauce Gardner, I instantly think Christian Gonzalez has to be smiling ear to ear. Go out, be all pro level, be healthy, and that guy's going to see $90 million hit his bank account really soon.
Oh, absolutely. He's got to be, and maybe it's because of the injuries that he's had dealt with. That's maybe this made him miss some time, so people aren't as aware. And obviously, the Patriots have been great, so not as many eyes are on them. But Christian Gonzalez, the way he plays the game, one of the most underrated corners in the NFL. And when he gets paid, there might be some people left scratching their head, like outside looking in, like, why did they pay this guy? But the reality is, the style he plays, the physicality he brings, that I remember hearing all the detractors say Christian Gonzalez doesn't have the physicality level that you need to have to play at the next level. Coming from Oregon, he's a soft corner. Based off what I've seen from him, I would have to strongly disagree on that. So I'm looking forward to that. And I will agree with you, Patriots fans, I don't feel like you should ever feel like you need to envy anything the Jets have going on. And the fact that you're in the boat of we need to get prepared to pay a quarterback as opposed to we think answer at quarterback. It might just be a short-term solution though, but we just paid our wide receiver $32 million a year. I would say that you're in a good boat.
Yeah, the Jets in that 2022 draft, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson with their 3 first-round picks. Jermaine Johnson's been good as an edge rusher. They also got Breece Hall. The Patriots have 2 players remaining from their 2022 draft, and that is Marcus Jones and Cole Strange. Christian Gonzalez was drafted in 2023. I might have said 2022. He was drafted in 2023, along with Keon White and Pop Douglas, and then Drake Maye in 2024. And that's why these extensions are coming up now for Gonzalez and Drake Maye. Marcus Jones and Cole Strange. A nickel that can't stay healthy, good punt returner. And then a offensive guard who can't stay healthy. And that, again, is like that subtle reminder of what Bill Belichick was doing with the roster. Let's get into this combo. This is going to be fun. Bengals first-round pick Shamar Stewart is not with the team, is working out in Texas A&M, where he lives and also went to college. And he could not play this year in the NFL. 2 options. He has multiple options. Could not play football at all. Could return to college, but that would have to be figured out on the court. Could go to another league, CFL, UFL, XFL, whatever. And then if he goes with these avenues, we'll kind of break them down. Basically, he could do anything but play for the Bengals, and it sounds like he'll be fine with it because the Bengals are trying to avoid all his guaranteed money on the back end of his contract due to an injury. We'll get into the nitty-gritty. This will be a fun conversation, Athan, especially I know a guy like you who has covered, the UFL and done a good job with that. This is what put up your podcast. Shamar Stewart, man, he could set a really interesting precedent for what rookies can do.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that looking at this from like 1,000-yard view, you see a tweet like that, and it came from Warren Sharp, who I had to take a double take because I'm like, is this a Dove Kleeman tweet? Because that's how it sounds, the way it reads.
Yeah.
But the reality is, he's not going back to college. There's no way, because it's written in stone in NCAA rules. Anyone that declares for the draft, if they don't rescind the declaration in 72 hours, it's not happening. And if it is, it's because you're trying to go to court over it. And I think we all know that the court systems here in this country don't move necessarily quickly. And you have 2 months till the season gets rolling, if that, for college football. It's not going to happen. So the reality is, the only option he does have, and on top of that, I also wanted to point this out too. Kelsey Conway, Bengals beat reporter, literally just blew out a tweet and was like, he's just practicing at their facilities to keep himself in shape and ready for the NFL.
Practicing with A&M, exactly.
He's not practicing with the team. Like, that's just like ridiculous tweeting and reporting. The reality is, his only actual option is sign with the UFL, sign with the CFL. It, I guess, like, negates his drafting rights to the Bengals because they're technically pro leagues. And then at that point, like, he has the option to try to like sign with another team down the road. If it's the CFL, I guess that's an option, but I don't envision it being with the UFL. And my hard stance on that is because with where the UFL currently stands and everything I know about the league from the time I've spent covering it, and I don't cover it anymore, but I still follow it enough. They're in a position where a partnership with the NFL is in their best interest with where they currently stand. And on top of that, Fox Sports is a big owner in that group that owns the entire league itself, who, coincidentally enough, Fox happens to broadcast NFL games. The last thing you want brought up in some sort of television deal conversation at some point down the road is having Roger Goodell look you square in the face and go, so why did you let Shamar Stewart possibly circumvent the structure and system that we have had in place for the last, almost 100 years now? Explain to me why you guys thought that was a good idea. Like, that's just conversation. And like, cause like then you have to start looking big picture, like the business ramifications of all that. I don't think that's an option. CFL is probably the only real thing I could see here, but I don't see him signing with like the UFL or anything along those lines. Like, I guess CFL would be his like one out.
I was reading that if he does sign with another professional league, then it actually locks him in with the Bengals, and they would have his rights for the next 3 years. If he doesn't sign his rookie contract by week 10 of this season, then that allows him to re-enter the draft in 2026. If he does, and it would have to be figured out in court, if he does go back and play college for his senior season, then that again allows him to re-enter the draft. But that puts together a whole different thing. He could ask for a trade at this point. He could just try to call the Bengals on their bluff. They could try to call him on his bluff. But it's interesting of the precedent it could set where if he just sits out football and only works out in 2025, he's going to pass up on a lot of money. He has some endorsements, so he'll bring in money that way. But he can't do the NIL. He can't play college football. And he can't go play in another league because what he essentially would want is not to be with the Bengals. He sits out football. He re-enters the draft next year. Then that's a whole different conversation because do teams want to touch him? I totally see him becoming a third-round pick for the Baltimore Ravens if he does that, right? Or like end of the first. They're going to go, we'll figure it out. We'll give him the money. Exactly. And they just get a stud. What it does for him, though, it just delays when he could get that second contract, that real payday. It's a staring contest between Shamar Stewart, who wants to get paid not a lot of money in NFL terms, and the Bengals, who are cheap and stubborn. And that's what they always pride themselves on. So it's just what could happen. But what you point out, too, say if he does decide to go to the XFL, if he does decide to go to the CFL, the politics then come into that. And what is the effect on the relationship between that league and the NFL? And it also could be a way, like owners don't want this to happen, but if they hate the Bengals ownership group, they could say, screw it, go. We'll figure it out. We'll get you out of there or we'll trade for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think to further my point on like, if that is like what he's going to do, like the rift it could cause between like a team, like a league like the UFL. Again, my point with like the whole like Fox owning the league and why they wouldn't want to muddy those waters because they're involved with the NFL. There has never been a time at this current stage where there are so many people chomping at the bit to be able to broadcast live sports. Netflix is getting in bed with the NFL. Of course, we have the Amazon games as well on Thursday nights. Those billion-dollar companies absolutely want that live programming. WWE has live events now broadcasting every single week on Netflix. It's very much tried and proven. It can happen. So at this point right now, I guess his option would be to sign with the CFL, let the 10 weeks go by, and then just try to get back in next year. If that's the case, that's the case. My other concern is just like if he does that, that's going to give a bad look to him and how and the NFL is currently dealing with collusion issues as it is right now. You're going to tell me that there isn't going to be some inside, we need to make an example of Shamar Stewart. Do not sign him. Do not draft him. Do not let him into our club. Like at the end of the day, like this is all real things that are happening at this current moment that are prevalent to why this is a really crazy scenario where I guess just about anything's on the table, but like, who knows?
It's one of those things too, is all predicated off him seeing language in the contract. If he gets injured his rookie season, that negates the money later on in the last few years of his deal. A normal deal the Bengals have given to past rookies. They're just trying to start something new with Shamar Stewart, and it could cost him the first-round pick. All right, let's move on. Talking wide receivers. Juwan Jennings, scheduled to make $7.5 million this season, wants a new contract or wants a trade. Adam Schefter reporting this. The 49ers can't go one single offseason without wide receiver drama. So Juwan Jennings is now out there. And then Terry McLaurin also, we know he continues to be frustrated contract talks with the Commanders. Here's Terry McLaurin speaking after he was at a commercial shoot in the D.C. area. Also met with local media to talk to them. Check it out right here.
Yeah, I've been pretty frustrated, I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up to this point has been disappointing and frustrating. I've wanted to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I have bought our first home here, so this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be. And just to see how things have played out has been disappointing. Obviously, I understand everything's a business, but at the same time, I want to put myself in a position where I'm valued and I feel appreciated and things like that. And unfortunately, that hasn't transpired the way I wanted to. So I'm just trying to take things day by day. And at the beginning of this process, I honestly just wanted to for things to work out, and I thought things were going to kind of be more progressive than they have. And so at this point, it's kind of just up in the air.
Two really good receivers out there that want to get paid, Athan. Now, we just went over how Christian Gonzalez is going to get $90 million. Drake Maye is going to get $500 million. Terry McLaurin, though, Juwan Jennings, they can help out Drake Maye right now. Before you have to pay those guys, you can pay these guys, and you can make it all work out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll keep this quick here because I know we don't have a ton of time, but I will say this. Terry McLaurin, he's probably not going anywhere. That is just the reality of the situation. If Washington is in the direction that everyone seems to look at them or think of them as right now, like a team heading in the right direction under stable ownership and front office work, he's not going anywhere. Yes, is this a little bit ugly? I think it's going to get resolved sooner rather than later. I assume that he's suiting up. A more realistic option, though, I do think is Juwan Jennings, because the 49ers are in a situation where Brandon Ayuk's contract is kind of locking them into him for X amount of time unless they can find somebody to eat all the money that they're paying him, and I don't think they can do that with the injury situation he's coming off of. I actually like the idea of a Juwan Jennings in New England. Is it my first choice? No, but I do think the intensity he brings to the game and just a reliable big target option who can find his way into the end zone, I'm a fan of it.
That Brandon Ayuk contract, if the Niners part away with them, they would have to eat $56 million. Excuse me.
That's insane.
$65 million. That's a dead cap. Yeah, just
that's even more insane.
So much money. It did the wrong math there. Just absolutely nuts. Hey, we'll take another break here on Foxborough Rush. When we're back, quick mailbag we got for you guys. Stay right there. Welcome back to Foxborough Rush. Like I said, I'm working with two producers and my co-host, Athan Hristodulu. So we're tight on time. One mailbag question from 8_fishing. Kayshon Boutte and Kendrick Bourne both have to stay. Why? Why does Kayshon Boutte have to stay? He was good. Best pass catcher on a really bad offense with a lot of injuries. Kendrick Bourne, I would like to stay. Neither of them have to stay. Eighth.
If I was to take one, Kayshon Boutte. Give me the youth. Give me the upside. Kendrick Bourne on his way out kind of deal at this stage of his career. I'll take the young guy.
I'm good on Kayshon Boutte. I would keep Kendrick Bourne. I think he could be a trade piece at the deadline. I think Kayshon Boutte is whatever. He's Athan Hristodulu. I'm George Balekji. Foxborough Rush. See you guys same time, same place Friday with a new episode.